We've got 19 days left, folks. All three presidential debates are in the history books. We've got a ton to break down on the final clash, beginning with the biggest newsmaker of the night, this one.
Do you make the same commitment that you will absolutely, sir, that you will absolutely accept the result of this election?
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time.
One of the prides of this country is the peaceful transition of power, and that no matter how hard fought a campaign is, at the end of the campaign, that the loser concedes to the winner. Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Well,
okay?
Chris.
And that elicited a sharp and pointed response from his opponent.
That's horrifying. You know, every time Donald thinks things are not going in his direction, he claims whatever it is rigged against him. He is denigrating, he's talking down our democracy. And I, for one, am appalled that somebody who is the nominee of one of our two major parties would take that kind of position.
Trump's questioning of the integrity of our presidential election has been met with widespread criticism on both sides of the aisle. Today, he addressed the fallout and added some gasoline to the fire.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to make a major announcement today. I would like to promise and pledge to all of my voters and supporters and to all of the people of the United States that I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election if I win.
Oh my God. So, not content to leave that story to die, he just added more to it. We'll be talking about it a lot more. Eric, when he said that last night in the debate, did you immediately think, oh, there's your headline?
I did, not because it had any substance to it, because I knew the right and the left were going to both grab onto that and say, look what he's doing in advance. If he's kind of setting the groundwork that he's going to say it's a rigged election. For a long time we've said, or I've said, I don't think this is a great strategy by him. I don't love this, but he's going to go ahead and embrace it. I still don't get it, but nonetheless he did. And I think that right there he was just being tongue-in-cheek. If I win, ha ha ha. But so let's talk about what that statement is. Is it that big? Listen, everyone is making a huge deal out of this, but why is it that big? Why is it so important? Okay, so he says, you know what? Maybe I will say it was rigged if I don't win. But it's commonplace. A lot of people, a lot of groups, people have said the election was rigged. I was supposed to win. 2004, great example. Ohio, 2006. It's been Democrats doing it as well. And don't forget, this is a guy who stood on a stage and said, had people say, will you support the eventual nominee? It ended up being him. And all of them said, yes, we will, and not all of them have.
Okay, I'm not sure what's the relevance of that?
He's been burned by even people in his own party in the past, so he's just saying, hey, let's just wait and see what the results are. He's not, I mean, look, if he loses and it's not going to be hanging Chad situations, I can see, okay, he lost, he'll move on.
All right, Juan, you want to respond to that?
I think that he's sowing distrust of the American political structure with people who are his most ardent supporters. I mean, the Trump supporters really believe Donald Trump, and he is now sort of inculcating this idea that, you know what, this American political structure is rigged against us. We will never get a fair shake. You go to vote and it won't be properly counted. So the result is Republican campaign election officials are coming out saying to Donald Trump, stop, don't do this. This is not right. We, in fact, run the election system in so many counties and states, and you're saying we're not to be trusted. So it goes beyond the moment. It goes beyond this election. It's people losing faith in our democratic processes and in democracy itself as a result. And I think that's irresponsible. I mean, you know, Hillary Clinton turned it into a joke. She said, well, Donald says everything's rigged when he didn't win the Emmys. And he said, I should have won it.
But that was pretty funny, although, on his part.
Yeah, but I mean, but we're talking about a real serious issue here. We're talking about, you know, the heart of the political structure.
Well, speaking of serious issues, Kimberly, the first at least 30 minutes, I thought, especially Chris Wallace, the moderator, who has received widespread praise for his role last night, he really hit several substantive issues: guns, Supreme Court, immigration, and abortion right away.
Yeah, right away he got to the meat, and I think also it was very important because he set the tone for the evening. Like, listen, this is, you know, big boy time, big girl time. There is not going to be any messing around. And he checked the audience too. So I think everyone was like, wow, okay, this is going to be straightforward. And I think from there, it really lent itself to success for the night, and people got to listen and hear. I mean, I think Chris Wallace gave a master class in debate moderation. I thought he was fantastic and brought the best out in terms of both of the candidates, making them both look, presidential in terms of answering the question. So it was great. I liked it a lot.
What did you think from, where did you guys watch it? Because you guys came home on the red eye last night.
I watched it in my hotel room.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did. I had the hotel robe on, and I ordered myself a nice piece of meat. I thought Chris Wallace
Hannibal Lecter
tried to achieve the impossible, which was to find the high road in quicksand, and I thought he did. I agree with Eric about this controversy. I mean, being surprised by that is you should be surprised by sunlight. That's pure vintage Donald Trump. It's not a refusal. It's more like a natural outgrowth of his negotiation. It's like, everything's on the table for him. It's always going to be on the table. He's not going to tell people what he's doing. That's his shtick. I don't think, it's weird. Every time a Republican does something, it's horrifying. But you could find 5 or 6 examples of somebody on the left doing the same thing, whether it's Black Lives Matters or Occupy Wall Street or Senator Sanders, even Barack Obama talking about division, talking about the little guy being screwed, and that's considered majestic and romantic. You have somebody on the right who's doing it, and it's somehow the whole democracy is under threat. Everything's going to be destroyed. I think he's just having that to me is harmless and kind of funny.
Can I just throw a couple of examples out as well? 2000, Jesse Jackson said, we have to check the integrity of the system. Salon in 2012, is the GOP stealing Ohio? 2000, New York Magazine, Rolling Stone, 2 occasions, 2 years apart, saying was the 2004 election stolen? Yes. Howard Dean actually says the voting machines were not reliable. And Fahrenheit 9/11. The left has been saying this exact same thing that Donald Trump has said for the last 16 or longer years.
There's such an important point to be made here, Eric.
Is after
Al Gore. Yeah. Al Gore, when he lost in a highly controversial election in our lifetime, something all of us at this table lived through, Al Gore said, you know what?
When, though?
When?
On Monday of the Supreme Court. Well, I think that there is.
One day, I think they're in the Supreme Court.
They went to the Supreme Court, and he said, you know what, even though, and to this day you can hear it from some part, that, in fact, Democrats got more votes than Republicans. Gore got more votes than Bush, but guess what? Gore cleared the way and acknowledged President Bush. What you're talking about, there are people who are not the candidate. Donald Trump is the candidate. That's my point to you.
Yeah, but
he's not Rolling Stone or some other magazine.
Well, let's
Jesse
see what
Jackson.
happens.
No.
If there's, why? By the way, for the record, I don't agree with voter fraud. I don't think it's going to make a difference.
But the only
election,
way that you and Greg can be right on this point is to say, oh, well, he thinks it's just like a TV reality show, and he's saying,
with the season finale.
Yeah, hey, this is a teaser for next week. You never know what's coming.
That's kind of how I looked at it.
But then what would that mean? That he really thinks he's already lost. That he's not playing to win this election anymore.
Man, are we overthinking a quick throwaway line?
That was not a throwaway line.
It just felt like it to me.
Chris Wallace gave him a chance to step out of the hole. Because once he stepped in, Chris Wallace said, hey, let me just be clear. In America's historical traditions, the losing candidate always gives away. Mr. Trump, what do you say?
If he does lose the electoral college, like say a Romney margin of loss, you think Donald Trump's going to say this was rigged and I should have won?
That's what he just said.
Oh, I don't know.
You know what's worse, though?
I'm not sure that's the interpretation.
What's worse than what Trump did? Okay, so Trump says that, but it's not necessarily a falsehood or anything. It's just a comment. Meanwhile, the thing that drives me crazy, and I think the left has pioneered this, the anecdotal story about somebody that they talk to. President Obama, candidate Obama, used to do that all the time, and she did it a couple of times yesterday. And it's like, I just want somebody to go, what is this person's name? Where are they from? How long have you known them? Because I don't believe you. I don't believe this conversation ever took place.
Well, the woman, the young girl Carla, is the woman that actually was she was the little girl that she made the ad about. That actually was a real girl, and that was.
Are you sure, Dana?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean,
either.
the thing is that as Charlie Hurt,
I wasn't talking about that one, by the way.
Okay.
I was talking about a different one.
All right, but you don't know who it is either.
I refused to listen. I fell asleep.
All right, I've lost control.
Because of the state.
Kimberly.
Yes. Well, it's heavy in your stomach.
Yes.
So there might be some who think this is no big deal. But the fact is that headlines across all the papers, that this is what everybody is talking about.
This was
so it leaves the structure of the race unchanged after last night's debate.
Right. And so you're talking about that instead of the other issues and the specific answers to the questions that Chris Wallace was actually able to nail them down on. So the lead today, which I heard 3 million times and read everywhere, was contesting the election, and you saw him getting criticized by the right, people in his own party, criticized by the left, and it felt a little bit like a squeeze play. And I'm like, let's talk about the other issues that happened and what their specific answers were on national security and on immigration and some of the other things that were so important.
But he gave them the rabbit to chase.
Of course, and that's the sad part, and that's why we've said for the last few days, this isn't a great debate or dialogue to be having right now. You point out rightly, Supreme Court, Second Amendment, abortion, and immigration. Right away, in the first 30 minutes, the first 4 topics, and Donald Trump drew a line and said, this is where we are on these policies, major policy issues. Here's where she is. And he nailed that. And then he went ahead with this thing. I just don't really get it. Maybe there's something on the backside of this. I don't understand, but you're right.
And
so every paper and every lead is about this comment.
You know what? You're upset.
Well, because I think there was an opportunity. I mean,
you could see some Trump supporters last night. I watched some of the coverage, and they would say, I wish he would have said this. I wish he would have said that. And they come up with really great things that he could have said. But that's not what he said, and this is the situation. And actually, you do have some Republicans trying to defend him today using things like in 2000. But I think the big difference is Al Gore challenged Florida. Now, Al Gore called and conceded to President Bush.
Yes, he did.
Then when they flipped Florida back, he called President Bush back and said, I'm going to take back that concession. And that started the recount. And what Gore wanted to do was selectively choose counties from which to do the recount, when Florida law said you have to do it all across the state. And David Boies, who was the attorney for Al Gore, actually in his autobiography, is very explicit that they were trying to harvest Democratic votes in those counties. And that's why there was that big fight. That was after the election was held, not beforehand. I think that's maybe the distinction.
Can I just one more compliment to Chris Wallace? He was like I called him the nonsense fireman. Whatever it seemed like it was going to go off track or there was going to be a little bit of nonsense, he took out the Chris Wallace fire hose and he just put it out, and then it just got back onto track. And I thought that's why you had a clear. You could see a clear definition between the candidates, minus the fog of chaos and hysteria that we've seen for so long.
And he did get acclaim from both sides.
Everywhere, everywhere.
Instantly,
I think
from all
from now
the
on
other
they should have
anchors
all the debates on Fox News.
With Chris Wallace.
With Chris Wallace.
I think we should add another one.
Yeah.
All right, we got to run it. We're going to run out of time. We've all seen the violence at some of the Trump rallies. The GOP nominee is blaming his opponent for riling up crowds on purpose. That fiery exchange from last night. We'll have it next.
At the final debate, the nominees sparred over who's responsible for inciting violence at some of Trump's rallies.
If you look at what came out today on the clips, I was wondering what happened with my rally in Chicago and other rallies where we had such violence. She's the one in Obama that caused the violence. They hired people, they paid them $1,500, and they're on tape saying, be violent, cause fights, do bad things.
He incites violence where he applauds people who are pushing and pulling and punching at his rallies.
So sad when she talks about violence at my rallies, and she caused the violence. It's on tape.
Trump was referring to an undercover tape by Project Veritas that exposed Democratic operatives discussing plans to cause trouble at his events, including a man named Robert Creamer, a frequent visitor to President Obama's White House. Clinton claims she knows nothing about it, and the head of the DNC tried her hardest to deny and deflect.
Look, when you have a convicted criminal sneaking around your office with imposters that try to
Are you referring to Bob Creamer, the head of Democracy Partners?
No, I'm referring to Mr. O'Keefe in the instance that he has doctored some videos as he's done before.
You say that the tapes are falsified?
Mr. O'Keefe enjoys falsifying records. He did it with NPR. He's done it with numerous sources. Donald Trump made several ridiculous claims tonight.
But you're dodging. I hit Donald Trump's representatives with those, but now I have you.
I don't play dodgeball, honey. I play basketball. And I'm just telling you, he tried to score on misinformation. He's trying to score
but I have you.
on information that was obtained illegally.
You say
All right, so Dana, about a week ago, I think I called for Donna Brazile to step down as the DNC chair because of that email that she sent forwarding the question to Hillary Clinton. Got a lot of pushback, but Megyn Kelly really honed in on that and didn't go well for
Well, that wasn't the part that we just saw in the interview. That went on for a long time. Donna Brazile denies it, but she was willing to come on the Kelly file and answer tough questions about it. What I think is whoever hired these people to go and incite violence for like human beings to confront other human beings, like the woman on the oxygen who got punched in the face, and it's planned out. I mean, I don't know if the tapes are edited or not. I take them at face value until we are proven otherwise. But that is just a terrible way to treat human beings. I would never agree to something like that.
Juan,
How dare you?
What do you make of this? I mean, the defense is, and we're talking about the accusation that the Democrats paid for protesters to incite violence at a Trump rally. I mean, if that's true and the tapes aren't doctored, it's horrible, right? The question is the only defense, well, those tapes might be doctored?
No. I think there are a couple of things to say here, and I've said it to you before. One is I think that there was a combustive atmosphere at Trump rallies absent anything, Ron. Two, I think that you have people like young college kids in Chicago, the scene that we just saw where the young man was being taken off the stage by the police. Those people, they're lefty activist anarchist types, and they get up there and they may be with Move On or whatever, Occupy Wall Street, and those people I think they're going to go there and they're going to start trouble and they're going to stop Trump from speaking, and in fact that's what they did that night in Chicago, as I recall. The third thing to say is, guess what? You know what? Donald Trump's foundation gave money to O'Keefe, and O'Keefe, I don't know why anybody would think, wouldn't think there's a problem with James O'Keefe and his record. He's had to pay lawsuit settlements. This is a guy that's been proven to have misled people who want to be his supporters on the right on issues like the abortion tape, the Planned Parenthood tapes.
Well, so are you again saying that the defense is they may be doctored?
We don't know.
Proof of that?
We don't know, and he doesn't have a high level of credibility. That's all I'm saying.
All right, so Greg, your thoughts on all these?
This is again an example of how the right is catching up to the left. The left have had people like Michael Moore for ages. And violence is always okay on the left because your heart's in the right place. For example, if you remember the riots, the WTO riots, they made a movie out of it called Battle of Seattle. So as long as, you have some kind of romantic, I'm for the little guy, you can do any violence you want. The other rule is a corrupt Republican always makes bigger news than a corrupt Democrat. David Hersani makes this point that, Trump is known for the sex allegations. On Hillary, they're using plants to incite violence. If you would reverse those two stories, and it was the Clintonian sexual allegations, people would make excuses for it, as they already have for Bill. And using plants to incite violence by Trump would be seen as the worst thing that could ever happen in the history of the world. So Republicans are already in the hole because for some reason even the left expects better of us. Isn't that funny? They expect better from us.
What's the line? If it bleeds, it leads. Well, it's bleeding, and it's not leading anywhere. What's leading is, as Greg points out, Trump's sex allegations, or he said something about contesting elections.
Well, I think this was a strong, powerful moment for Trump to bring it up. It looked like Hillary was in kind of shocked disbelief because he made a very broad, strong claim accusing her and the White House. And she didn't. Well, that's what he did say. He did accuse them.
But I'm saying,
and which was kind of surprising to accuse and say the White House was directly involved and complicit in this. So that's a very bold statement to make during, a debate like that. When she was questioned later on her plane, she was like, have some food and drinks. I can't get into every one of his conspiracy theories. So that's what we have. But I also think when somebody's accusing of something like that, I thought she should have said something back to defend or say that she had nothing, to do with it. I didn't feel she maybe it was a strategy that she had in debate prep to not go and defend herself because he made some very strong allegations at her, and that was one of them that kind of was left on the table.
Yeah, what if an email surfaces show that later on that looks like there is a tie to it, so she was right to dodge it.
But see, that's why
they did it on purpose.
That's what I was going to say to you. So if there is a chain, and you can say Hillary Clinton's campaign was responsible for this, then you got a story. But right now there is no such.
But the DNC clearly,
They want
is responsible.
No, they want to distance
somebody.
Yeah, but
that's right. To distance themselves.
Isn't that admitting guilt right there?
No.
Well, if you fire someone, you're basically saying what's on those tapes must be real, right?
No, you're reaching here. They're trying to just keep this at a distance.
Am I wrong?
And I think if Republicans, if Trump heard that, I would hope that they would get rid of such people.
If you fired someone based on what was on that tape, you better be darn sure what was on that tape.
Well, you can settle a lawsuit without admitting guilt. So I think you can fire somebody without admitting.
All right, we'll leave it right there.
WikiLeaks just actually came out. John Podesta said some horrible things about you, and boy, was he right. He said some beauties. Podesta said you have terrible instincts. Bernie Sanders said you have bad judgment. I agree with both.
Donald Trump taunting his rival with her words from her campaign chair as well. That's according to hacked emails released by WikiLeaks. Clinton tried to undo the damage caused to her campaign by shifting the focus to Russia and Vladimir Putin.
What's really important about WikiLeaks is that the Russian government has engaged in espionage against Americans. Will Donald Trump admit and condemn that the Russians are doing this and make it clear that he will not have the help of Putin in this election?
I don't know Putin. He said nice things about me. If we got along well, that would be good. He has no respect for her.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
You're the puppet. We saw the puppet.
Yes.
On the show.
Yes. Trump puppet.
But Greg, I thought, in fact, that was a moment when Trump had Hillary on the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
And she, pivots off the ropes, brings up Putin, and he goes in on Putin, and ends up trying to defend Putin, which I don't think is politically advantageous.
Yeah.
So at the end of this period, Chris Wallace says, boy, we got a long ways away from anything that we were talking about here.
Well, this is the dilemma, okay? We can legitimately nail Hillary for carelessly treating classified information, but how can you do that while championing actual espionage against your own government? The Russians are plotting to subvert an election to foment some kind of dissension. They're trying to do, well, I don't believe it's a revolution. Perhaps it's revenge against our meddling in the Ukraine or elsewhere, and Putin's just exacting revenge. But the fact is, you go after her about her emails, but then you say that WikiLeaks is okay. WikiLeaks is espionage. It's allowing another government to undermine our government. Interpol just arrested another Russian linked to the hacking scheme here. We know Podesta fell for a phishing scheme where he opened a link that looked like a Gmail account, and that's how they got him, and that's how they ended up getting your phone number, Juan, which I've been answering every day.
Apparently, a lot of people want to talk to you.
Yes, I've been taking massage orders from men in Ohio.
Yes, wearing panties.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
That is not untrue, by the way.
Yeah. We disavow that statement of the five. I have something serious.
Yes, ma'am.
Save it.
Save us.
Yeah.
So here's an opportunity, right? Dana, you talked about, a lot of people said there's some opportunities. There's definitely, Trump had a good debate performance. He hit some points on her and was solid, and she didn't refute a lot of it. Here's an opportunity here where she's saying, look, this is determined by intelligence agencies that, in fact, have verified that the Russians have hacked servers. And then he needs to follow up and say, but yet you believe that the Russians didn't all this. You had your own personal server, which was not recommended or proper policy, therefore endangering national security.
Well, he didn't.
You cannot be trusted.
He could. That would have been
possible. Can I add one more? I know you want to go on. Let me add to one more thing.
All right.
The right answer to that, when the Russians come up, either Chris or Hillary, is you say, stop right here. If you're really that worried about Putin, and if you're really that worried about Russians, why did your State Department and why did you sign off on selling them 20% or 25% of U.S.
Qatar, all of these countries. You talk about women and women's rights. So these are people that push gays off business, off buildings.
The other thing about her, I think she dodged that question, basically. She sort of avoided it. And America Rising PAC, today I had a video that I clicked on. It was a legitimate link. It was not a phishing link. About how Doug Ban from Teneo and the Clinton Global Initiative is talking about gifts that were given directly to Bill Clinton. And this has been an organization that definitely has helped deliver HIV/AIDS drugs to people who are suffering around the world. And at the same time, taking money that is very questionable. And I think any other group probably would have been nailed on it, but she dodged it and probably is going to get away with it.
Well, I think, there was another one where borders. I mean, I think the open borders, she is able to move away. Trump couldn't hold her in place. Another big topic of the night was abortion. Does Trump want to overturn Roe v. Wade? Does Hillary still believe the unborn don't have constitutional rights? Chris Wallace got answers. Watch next.
Well, millions of women in America were listening very closely last night when Trump and Clinton shared their positions on abortion. Whomever ends up in the Oval Office will be appointing justices to the Supreme Court who could potentially reverse a landmark abortion decision. Trump was asked about it.
Do you want the court, including the justices that you will name, to overturn Roe v. Wade, which includes, in fact, states a woman's right to abortion?
Well, if that would happen, because I am pro-life and I will be appointing pro-life judges, I would think that will go back to the individual states.
Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court.
Chris Wallace also pressed Clinton on her position on the issue, and he asked why she voted against a ban on late-term partial birth abortions, and then Trump piled on.
Roe v. Wade very clearly sets out that there can be regulations on abortion so long as the life and the health of the mother are taken into account. And when I voted as a senator, I did not think that was the case. I do not think the United States government should be stepping in and making those most personal of decisions.
If you go with what Hillary is saying, in the 9th month, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb of the mother just prior to the birth of the baby.
Okay, Women Dana obviously listening very closely to the answers that both candidates gave. Trump right away stood up and said, I am pro-life. I will appoint justices that are pro-life. Believe this should go back to the states. And then when Chris pressed him, he said, yes, I believe it'll probably happen automatically and pretty quickly because I'll appoint 2 to 3.
Well, he avoided the question, and the question was, do you want Roe v. Wade to be overturned? And I think that his answer was one that he probably had in debate prep. He's like, just don't get into it. He was stronger if you're a pro-life person, his answer on partial birth abortion was persuasive. Thing is, though, for her, and we talked about those substantive issues at the beginning, I think that her answers were specifically geared towards the suburban women that she is doing very well with, that he is not doing as well with and needs to do better with. And I do think that I'm a pro-life person, and it's difficult to talk about abortion. For me, it's difficult. I admire people who are able to stand by their faith and talk about it publicly. I think that Governor Pence did a wonderful job of talking about it in the vice presidential debate.
He did.
But Hillary Clinton, Secretary Clinton, when she was talking about her view, it was as impassioned. And I do think that on that point, with the audience that she cares about, she won.
Now, so Bowling, that probably obviously was strong for conservatives, pro-life conservatives, evangelicals,
constitutional conservatives.
Right. I
mean, straight down the line.
Yeah. Trump, did he need help with those groups and to shore it up? Did he get any benefit from it?
Great point. Maybe he already had them. I mean, that's very possible. There is the knock that Donald Trump isn't a true conservative. Maybe he won some votes in that group that says, I want to vote for the guy because he's a Republican. I definitely don't want the Democrat, but he's not conservative enough for me. And again, for me, this has come down to the single issue vote. Again, it's a Supreme Court. Yes, abortion falls under it, no matter what your feelings are on abortion, but so does Second Amendment rights, so does immigration, so do a vast many other things that fall under the Supreme Court. And I think Trump, you're right. That's the only answer he could have provided at that moment.
And he tried to really hit the partial birth abortion, late-term abortion.
It's really not a cop-out to say it'll go back to the states, because if you're a true conservative, you believe everything should go back to the states.
Okay. All right. So, Greg, what did you think of the two answers juxtaposed? How did they do?
Well, it was just unusual because this is the third debate, and this is it just shows you how rare social issues have come up in this kind of new election, where you have basically Trump, who is a non-ideologue, who for the longest time was pro-choice, very, very pro-choice. But the interesting thing I always go back to is if fetuses could vote, what party would they belong to?
Absolutely.
Talk about a silent majority. And you look at like what outrages you. Roe v. Wade. It's not going to be overturned, but there should be moral outrage regarding practices like partial birth abortion. And if you don't, what the left does is they disingenuously extend your outrage to all parts of abortion. And the fact is, what that does is it puts everybody on the back foot who have understandable outrage. But if you don't have a certain kind of outrage about this, then in a sense, everything is permissible. You can do anything, and there will be in the future moral philosophical arguments by ethics. People that work, say, for the White House will be discussing whether or not you should be able to put to death babies that are born unhealthy. I mean, you could extend this beyond childbirth to an entirely new disturbing area. And there are ethicists who actually entertain these kind of thought experiments about what you do with people who are burdens.
Yeah, death panels. Remember that one? Remember that? So I think that's an extension of the argument. But the problem here, I just strongly disagree, because I think Trump refused to say that he wants Roe v. Wade overturned. Instead, he's tried to dodge. He was slippery on it and then used the states as a fallback. And I thought he couldn't pivot. And then he put himself in a position where he used what Hillary Clinton calls scare rhetoric. Rip the baby from the mother in the 9th month. And, to me, Hillary Clinton, when she came back and said, to your point, Greg, government should not be involved in such personal decisions about a woman and her health. Leave it to the woman, leave it to her doctor, leave it to her faith. To me, that's pretty strong.
But the government's already involved, correct?
But government, when she talked about the Chinese and the Romanians making choices for women.
Which will be next.
All right,
it's happening.
Also, if there's the health of the mother involved, no one's saying, hey, the mother should die and the child.
That's why she said she voted as she did in the Senate.
She's using those tactics, too, and saying that Planned Parenthood will be completely defunded. And the issue was about federal funding for abortion services versus health of the women and wellness checks and that type of thing, those type of female things.
Female things.
Yeah. You know about them, Greg.
We know those.
Now that the debates are over, where will the race turn next? You want to know? Stay tuned.
The debates are finally over. Where will this election go in the final 19 days? Kimberly, I think there are going to be more shoes falling than your closet during an earthquake.
Nice.
What do you predict?
There goes one.
There you go. There are millions of men around the country.
I'll autograph it.
Yes.
Well, we aim to please.
Yes, exactly. Where do I think it's going to go?
You got 30
I think
seconds.
That Trump is feeling confident after he delivered that performance, except for the fact that he's saying he might contest the election. He'll say, I'll surprise you. But other than that, I mean, look, I don't think Clinton should think this is over by a long shot.
30 seconds, Juan, if it's possible.
Well, I mean, right now, I'm not sure what he can do, because that was the last major opportunity to change the direction. Right now, you have so many states that are supposedly red states that look like they're actually turning blue. I'm thinking here, even Utah, Arizona, Georgia. I don't know how he turns that around.
Well, there's one other opportunity, and that's tonight, Al Smith dinner. If you've never seen this, you got to tune into this. Fox is going to cover it probably during the 9 o'clock hour, maybe go into the 10 as well. Both candidates will be there, and they'll be roasting each other and themselves, tongue-in-cheek, fun.
I hope it's fun.
Bush 43 was hilarious.
Are you going?
And so was Obama.
No.
So tonight, Fox News, probably around the
I'm not going to miss that.
You went one time bowling.
It was amazing. Hilarious.
To Juan's point, Michelle Obama is in Arizona right now, trying to rally the troops out there. And she's saying that by saying there's a rigged election, he's trying to make sure you don't come out and vote. But I'm telling you, your vote matters. And so they've deployed their most important asset in the campaign, Michelle Obama, to a red state, because they're going to try to make a play and expand the map. The other thing is, I saw there's a lot of disappointment that one of your favorite subjects has not come up in any of the debates.
Artificial intelligence?
Climate change.
Oh.
There's a lot of disappointment on the left. Yes.
Yeah, I saw that. My only point is, they didn't shake hands yesterday before the debate. I don't think they shook hands after. No. I was at the airport. I wanted to look at politics, and the bartender said, you know what? A lot of people, they don't want to have politics at the bar or at the casino because people are getting so upset. So it leads my final thought is, when this is all over, will we be able to forgive and forget?
Yeah, we couldn't get at the casino either.
Yeah, but will we all be able to get along again, like a family?
Okay, whatever you want. We can hug it out later.
That's all I wanted to know.
But for the next 19 days.
I also want your shoe. One more thing is up next.
Okay.
So it's time now for one more thing. I'll go quickly. So tonight there's the Al Smith dinner. You're going to want to watch that live on Fox. But if you are channel surfing during commercial breaks, but you shouldn't do, go to my live book signing. I'm going to have Jasper there, and we have a little video.
Great.
I started noticing these hilarious Photoshops on Twitter from an anonymous person named 5Fan Photoshops, and he would put Jasper into different settings, whether news of the day or on set with us on the 5 or on Red Eye.
Jacket.
No, I won it.
That was a jacket everybody wore in New Hampshire. It was Greg's, but we all had a.
Who wore it best?
Kimberly definitely wore. Oh, you won that contest.
I won the contest.
Yeah, so I hope you'll join me tonight. It'll be fun.
All right.
Jasper will.
Legit online.
Eric, you're next.
Okay, so very quickly, last night she said this. Hillary Clinton said this. Blew my mind. Listen.
He has cut the deficit by 2/3.
Here we go.
So here's what we thought we'd do. Economics lessons for Hillary Clinton. Let's talk about the deficit. Here's the deficit. The last Bush deficit was $459 billion. President Obama raised the deficit for the first 3 or 4 years of his presidency, brought it back down to $587 billion. But you want to know what the reality is? That he actually increased the deficit by $127 billion, or 128% of Bush's deficit. And let's talk about debt very quickly. Here's what he inherited: $10.6 trillion in debt. He's going out with $19.6 trillion. He tacked on $9 trillion in debt. So deficits and debt hasn't been a pretty picture. Sorry.
Yeah, gee, wonder about that recession. All right. Oh, what a night for the first debate with a Fox moderator. Fox News was the most watched TV network for the third and final presidential debate. According to early data, Fox News attracted 11 million viewers, 3.5 million in people aged 25 to 34, that prize segment. Total number of viewers tops not just Fox cable competition, but all the broadcast networks.
Yes.
Go Fox News.
Basically, we crushed it.
You're